So we're going to be working on the backup. This is a separate day than the last video. I think this is shot over 3 days, I believe, something like that. But you can see my backing up methods. So it's going to be the typical natural horsemanship, like wiggle the rope, wiggle it harder, and then smack him under the jaw, basically. And you can see his head, his body positioning, his neck's way up high. I'm working on that underside of the neck is all I'm doing, is like making that bigger. His back is hollow, and then he finally takes a step back. I've managed to stress him and scare him, and now he's doing a bunch of licking and chewing because he's like, oh my gosh, that was over. Like, I stopped pushing, I've stopped hitting him with the lead rope, and then he was like, oh my gosh, it's done. So that's where he's licking and chewing. And then again, I am sequencing it, not doing a great job with that. I definitely could have been a lot slower. But what I found is if you just use a target and some food, you can get the backup in like 2 seconds and you can get a correct backup from the very beginning. You don't have to have any of these steps where that was actually a nice step, but he's learned again through sequencing, if you don't do this when I barely wiggle the rope, I'm going to smack you under the jaw with it, essentially. But I can get a correct backup from the very beginning because this is not a correct backup step. Look at his body language. Look where his at. When would you want a horse to back up like that? You wouldn't. So I'm working his body wrong and doing a ton of practicing of the wrong thing that I don't want. Um, but when I can just use the target, I can get that behavior in a couple of minutes and it's correct from the beginning because he's following that target. He's tucking his neck up underneath, he's raising his back, and I'm not having all of this stuff. I don't need to be jamming and or really hitting him with the lead rope either. If you're going to use negative reinforcement, I don't escalate. I would just start with that low one, maybe do the medium, and just kind of wait until he backs up. I definitely would not do this where I'm really getting after him and shaking that lead rope at him and hitting him under the jaw. So I would definitely not do that ever. Here you can see a little bit earlier. Like I would have just waited at that little bit earlier one. But this is a pretty common thing you see a lot. But it doesn't give the horse a ton of time to respond because they don't know what it is that you want. You can see their first reaction is to get their head away from that because it's annoying. They don't understand what it is. So you're by default training in that head away movement into your backup. So like I would stay like right here and wait for that until he backs up. There's no need to escalate that. And really, like my go-to is just the target. And if you want to watch the other videos, you can see the difference in the backup, and just specifically Dakota's, because I had started her with this method of backing her up and then switched the target, and you can see it's night and day how she does it. She offers the backup now. It's very good. She can back up many feet away from me versus having to really hit them on the face and apply a ton of pressure to get one step. So that's a good example of that as well. But again, his body language doesn't look thrilled either. He's got his ears back. He's just kind of like lights are on, no one's home kind of thing. Again, his first reaction is to get his head away from that pain and raise it up, and then he eventually takes that step back. But again, through this process, I'm adding in that neck up and tightness into the backup, which is something we don't want anyway. And he's not having any fun. Like he's not enjoying this process whatsoever.